So we are standing at, a couple days before Rosh Hashana, and there's a couple things we should understand going into Rosh Hashana, going into holidays, what's our approach in general on holidays, things like that. And I'd like to take it from the most holistic perspective as possible. First of all, just to understand time a little bit in Judaism. When you look at the word spiritual, so you see two words. You see the word, what two words you see up there? You see the word spirit, and you see the word ritual. Okay? Spirit and ritual. For something to be spiritual, it has to include both the spirit and the ritual. Okay? The spirit of something has to do with the soul behind the thing, and the ritual of something has to do with the body of it. Because the ritual you can video. A ritual, someone's doing a ritual, they'll be blowing shofar. That all would show up on sound sensors. You can set the vibrations of the shofar. You could video the shofar blower. That's a ritual. But the spirit behind that ritual, you can't video that. Now there's all these Kabbalistic things involved with shofar blowing and all the secrets involved with each type of blast that they blow from the shofar. That would be the spirit behind it. That's the soul aspect of it. And just like we have a body, which can show up on video, it takes place, it's physical, it takes place in space and time, there is a soul that is part of you, that completely untraceable. You can't trace it. It doesn't show up in an MRI, your soul. And it's hidden inside of you somehow, and yet the brain scan can't find it. Like when they check for you, they can't find you. They can find your taste, where taste shows up. They can find where fear shows up. They can find where love shows up. All kinds of stuff they can find. They can't find you. You don't exist on any physical level. You're completely non-existent. Yet here you are in this room listening to me, which means you do exist. You really do exist. Where? Well, nowhere physical, but somehow it hangs around your body. And that's why whenever we say the blessing after the bathroom, of the thanking God for all our ducts and tubes, and the ones that are shut stay shut, and the ones that are open stay open, and that, without that we would not be able to stand before God. You'll notice the last two words of that blessing are umafli lasot. Rofecho basar, he heals all flesh. Umafli lasot, and but he acts wondrously. What does that mean? When you click on the words, acts wondrously. Umafli lasot, when you click on those two words, it takes you to the rabbis who say, the wondrous thing is that the soul hangs around your body. How could it possibly be a spiritual thing hangs around a physical thing? You can't see it, doesn't show up on brain scans, doesn't show up on MRIs, doesn't show up anywhere in physical, yet it's somehow, everywhere you go, there you are. You walk out of the room, you're going to be out there. Whoa, how'd I get out here? Well, your body walked out there. What does my soul have to do with my body? I don't know. We can't figure out where they connect. But somehow your soul is in your body somehow. It's the weirdest thing. It's a pele. And that's the word mafli, is the word of pele, is wondrous. It's a pele. It's a wondrous reality that your soul hangs around your body. Now, just like to share a little more about spirit and ritual. The ritual of something is what you do. That's the what. In Hebrew, that's called ma. And the spirit of something is the why. Okay? Which is similar in Hebrew. It's lama. Lema or lama. It's to what. To le is to, and what? Lema. To what end? So why and what are really, they're really the same thing. It's the search. It's the looking into things, understanding things. What is the physical thing? What do I do? Wrap tefillin. What do I do? Blow a shofar. What do I do? I read the Torah. What do I do? That's the what. And then the lama is why would I do it? Okay, is that clear? Steve, have I done this stuff with you already? No. You haven't done this? So, anyway, it's important for us to have our whats and our whys hooked up. You'll notice, if you ever lose the why for what, you're going to lose the what soon after. If someone has a reason to go to gym and then they lose that reason, they stop going to the gym very soon. If someone has a why for a person of the opposite gender and they wind up marrying them, and then they lose the why, they're going to also lose the what. Yeah? You have to always keep the why in the mix, and you have to develop more whys and more whys and more whys. Okay? If someone becomes an observant Jew because of some whys, but he doesn't stay either current with them, meaning he just kind of falls back into robot mode, his what's going to really be lacking. If, on the other hand, he stays out of robot mode and keeps in touch with the whys and even is constantly adding more whys, so just like marriage, his Judaism will be always on the up and up. He'll keep doing the whats because he's got the whys wired. Clear? So what and why is really important, and that's what makes someone spiritual. So spiritual, we've all kind of let it mean religious of some way, but here you can see it could be just going to the gym. It could be like, I know why and I know what, and I put them together and I feel hooked up. In other words, being spiritual, according to this definition, means I'm hooked up. I feel hooked up in my marriage, I feel hooked up in my life, I feel hooked up with my activities. Yeah? Now, Western traditions have been more involved in linear thinking and ritualistic life. Westerners are more ritualistic and they're more linear looking at things. They see life linearly. Eastern traditions, on the other hand, see the world as more cyclical and they're more spirit-oriented. So if you went to this is the West, and this over here is the East. So if you went to an Eastern tradition, and they may say that meditation would be the highest form of one's life, like the highest manifestation of man on earth, is to meditate. But that would be absolutely no ritual. It'd be pure spirit, and outer body spirit experience, no body, pure soul. And whereas Westerners don't have that kind of thing. They're much more in the body and much more ritualistic. And you may notice also that Christianity is, interestingly, a takeoff of temple Judaism. You'll notice Christianity begins right when the temple was destroyed. And they have a very similar setup. They have a priesthood, just like we had the Kohanim. They had these fancy outfits, just like the Kohanim did. They have their rituals that they would do with the incense, just like we had an incense altar. Okay, they walk around with the incense thing in there, and it's geographically locational, meaning things take place in a church. You don't see Christians praying in phone booths and doing all kinds of other stuff on the street. Okay, it takes place centralized, and whatever, there's other similarities, but it is the outer trappings of temple Judaism. You understand? It's the outer experience of temple Judaism. And Islam took off like 700-800 years later, where the Jews in those days were synagogue Jews. They weren't temple Jews. They had many centuries of synagogue Judaism, and where you see that now it's not, and Islam took the externals of synagogue Judaism, where they go several times a day, it's non-centralized, there's no priesthood, everyone's a practitioner, and it's just like, it's basically synagogue Judaism, the externals of synagogue Judaism. Interestingly, when you go to the Eastern tradition, so you see that at the end of Parshas Chaisar, Abraham remarries, Sarah passed away, his wife Sarah dies, and he marries a woman named Keturah, which means incense. Sounds pretty Eastern to me. And then they have all these kids, that are all like names. They're all names of Eastern books. Zimram, Yokshan, Medan, Midyan, Ishbak, Shua, Yokshan. One of them is even named Veda. Yeah? You heard of the Veda books of Hinduism? It's listed right here. I'll go to Hebrew for that one. Tushim Lumim. Avida. Avida is one of the names of the kids, and And then it says that Abraham sent those kids to the east, to the lands of the east, away from Isaac. They should stay away from Isaac. And they would go eastward to the land of the east. A lot of strange things there. And it says literally, if I read it, Abraham gave all he had to Isaac. But to the children of Keturah, Abraham gave gifts. If he gave everything he had to Isaac, what were the gifts he gave to these eastern boys that he sent away from him? And the answer is he gave them the gifts of the esoteric knowledge, the mysticism. He gave them an understanding, the gifts. They didn't give the gifts of Israel. He didn't give the gifts of the land of Israel. He didn't give the gifts of being the children of who will get the Torah at Sinai. He didn't give them any of that. What he gave them was the gifts of the secrets of creation, the inner world. So it's really interesting because you see that Islam and Christianity came right out of us. You know, Ishmael's the father of Islam, Esau's the father of Christianity, yeah? And meanwhile, Abraham had these other kids, says right there in our Torah, that he sent to the east. Well, if you look at the history of Hinduism, you can look it up online, Wikipedia, you'll see that they claim their origins come from the other side of the Euphrates, i.e. Israel, this side of the Euphrates, when? At the exact time of Abraham's life. That's what they claim is the source of Hinduism. It's from this side, and what's the highest caste? You know, they have a caste system, the Hindus. What's the highest caste in Hinduism? Sounds a lot like Abraham. What's it called? Brahmin. Very good. A Brahmin is considered the highest caste, meaning the most Abraham-like, closest to their original ancestor is a Brahmin, yeah, which comes from the word Abraham. Now, and what's amazing about it is you got the external ritualistic traditions taking off from Judaism's externalities, as that we spoke about, temple destruction, and then about 700 years later. And then you have the Eastern traditions that are kind of focused on the internal aspects, the Kabbalistic aspects of Judaism, of our tradition, because that's what they got. They got the internal, and that's what they went to the East with. So when I sit down with Christians and Muslims, which I do once in a while in different kinds of rabbinic settings for myself, so we have like a lot in common, but really nothing in common. We have a lot in common, like they got to go to pray, and now I got to go to pray, and like, you know, we got our prayer times and stuff, and so it seems like we have a lot in common, but we actually have nothing in common. And then whenever I'm sitting with Hinduists or Buddhists and stuff, and I'm meeting with them for whatever things I have to do as a rabbi, then what happens is it seems like we have nothing in common, and when we start getting into it, we realize we have everything in common. You understand? So here it seems like we have nothing in common, when in fact the vast body of knowledge of Judaism is much more present over there, while there's very little external similarities. And whereas here we seem similar to the naked eye, yet we have almost nothing in common with those people. How do you like them apples? So back to our business. Our business is the holidays. So let's just talk about time a little more. Linear means there's a beginning and it moves up through time, and that's linear. That's the linear perspective of time. Now, where would anyone get a linear perspective of time? It doesn't make any sense. If you look at the Earth, you look at the way things are, everything's cyclical. There's a hydrological cycle, there's the seasons, there's the moon, there's the reproductive cycle, there's the life cycle, there's births and deaths, and you'll generally find, no matter where you go in Aboriginal cultures, all believe in reincarnation, Judaism included. Again, once again, our internal Torah is matching exactly the native Aboriginal Torah of their teachings, and you get reincarnation. Everything's very cyclical in the world. So where in the world did people get this kind of cutoff aspect, this like aspect that kind of leads almost away from spirituality, this linear thinking perspective. Does anyone know where that came from? Where did they get it? How come all of a sudden people would start talking about beginning, end? The answer is right under your nose. What?
Arrogance.
Arrogance, no. Leads to arrogance because the focus on it at the expense of cyclical means that you have to start getting defensive and poised around it. You have to posture yourself around it and maybe pull out a machete about it. Yeah. Anyone else? It's right under your nose. Who said anything about a beginning? Beginning. Who brought up this whole beginning business? Yeah. Jews. Because the Jews have a revelation from the master of the universe who says, okay, Moses, I want you to ghostwrite a book for me. Moses is like, okay, I can do that. Yeah, what do I have to do? Just hold your hand steady. I'll take care of the rest. So what are the very first words in the beginning? Moses is like, who said anything about a beginning? Like Moses knew a lot about the world. He was a pretty heavy-duty dude. There are no beginnings traditions. What tradition we have about a beginning? And it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. You mean it? This place wasn't always here? And Moses, no, it wasn't always here. There was once vast nothingness. And I created a world. Yeah? And Moses was like, okay, I'll write it. In the beginning. Yeah, and that was the beginning of the Torah. In the beginning. So now there's beginning. But when you're talking from a Jewish perspective, it's never the surface. You always have to go in the depths. And when you go in the depths, you find out that our whole tradition is actually cyclical based. And we really are involved in the study of reincarnation and all the cyclical aspects. We are uninterested in the sun completely, except for the seasons. Meaning we'll adjust our lunar cycle, but we don't care at all about the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is for people named Greg, okay? For us, people named Shmuel and Yonatan, we're only interested in the cyclical nature of the moon. We follow the moon calendar. Okay, we adjust it because the moon calendar, like the calendar to know how long a Shana is. What's the word Shana? It means year, yeah? Which is, Shin's always easy to remember, it equals 300. And because it's got 3 arms to the fire, to the bonfire. Shin's a bonfire. It's a word for fire, Eish HaTorah, yeah? And the Nun is 50. And the Hey is 5. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey equals 355, which is exactly, minus a teeny bit, the lunar calendar, 355 days of the year. The word Shana spells 355. So we are much more interested in the lunar calendar, which has this cyclical nature to it. And we adjust for the missing 10 days, which the solar calendar, which is 365. We adjust, and the only reason we adjust is because our holidays are agrarian. Is that the right word, agrarian? Our holidays are agrarian. So we're coming up on the Sukkot holiday, where it's called the holiday of gathering the grains. We gather our grains. And that's why we celebrate, because, hey, look at all this bounty. We're all going to have money, and we're going to have food, and we're going to have everything we need. So we have a celebration called Sukkot for gathering in the grains. Yeah. What's that?
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, right? Does that have to do with gathering the grains?
No.
Anyway, the Shavuot holiday is when we offer the first wheats, the first sprouted wheat that we offer up. Yeah, and they're all based on they're all seasonal holidays. So otherwise we'd be like the Arabs. The Arabs also go by cyclical nature of the lunar calendar. On that aspect they're in. They go by the lunar calendar. But they've got Ramadan hitting in August sometimes, which is never good news. Because people get irritable, it's a long day, it's boiling hot, and they start getting out of control. Whereas when Ramadan hits in the winter, which hopefully it will next year, or at least it'll be pushed on another month or something, and when it's in cooler times, they generally are better behaved. Yeah, and they don't make as much trouble. Ramadan summer is usually problematic. Around the world. I'm not just talking about Israel. Around the world, people deal with more stuff when Ramadan's in the summer. Anyway, but the Jewish calendar adjusts for these things. Now, okay, so we got the cyclical internal world. We got the linear external, because in the end, if you think about it, there is a passage of time. Time is going by. Right now as we speak, time's going by. And so how can I draw a shape on the board that is both a depiction of the cyclical and a depiction of the linear? What kind of shape would I draw? I want to include the circle, and I want to include the line. And so the answer is the best shape to represent both cyclical and linear is the, ready? Okay, is a spiral. Okay, and I made a cone-shaped spiral. Didn't have to be cone-shaped. But the spiral is the best depiction of it. It both has time passage, and it has, let's say this is going to be Rosh Hashana. So let's say this is Rosh Hashana this year on the cycle. So it's got the passage of time, but it's also got the yearly points. So each holiday is going to be like a dot on the cycle of things. Okay, so there's cycles going on, but there's much more cycles than years. I'm showing you years. There's all kinds of cycles. Like even today, for example, if I go onto my iPhone and I click on the app Zmanim, which is what this discussion's all about. So it now calculates today. These are the times for Jerusalem. And you'll see an 8:14 sunrise, sorry, an 8:14 dawn, a 6:27 sunrise, a Shema. To say the Shema, you're supposed to say it in the first 3 hours of the day. There's two opinions. One is you start from dawn, and the other is you start from sunrise. As we said already, dawn and sunrise are about an hour and 15 minutes apart. So therefore, you'll see about an hour and 15 minutes apart between the two Shema times. A little less here for reasons I'm not going to explain right now. So the first Shema is 8:46 in the morning. The second opinion that we go from sunrise, it's 9:29. Yeah, did you get anyone say Shema before 9:29 today? I did. 9:29. Me and the cameraman said Shema before the Shema. Prayer, you're supposed to say within the first 4 hours a day. That was at 9:56. Sorry. Oh, according to the first opinion, 9:56. Second opinion was 10:30. Okay. Midday is the cutoff for the morning prayer. That was at 12:32. You guys probably thought midday was noon. Not in Judaism. It all depends. Think about it. We're right now in the summer solstice. When you'll be in the, right now we're not, we're in the fall, but in the summer solstice, an hour would be probably about 72 minutes because the days are longer. And in the winter solstice, a day might be 50 minutes or 48 minutes. And in the fall now, a minute is, see, I might have an app for how long a minute is, one second. A minute is, oh wow, unbelievable. I don't think this has ever happened to me in my life. A minute is 60 right now. We're right in the middle. Meaning if I checked that yesterday or today, yesterday or tomorrow, it might have switched already. An hour's an hour, only today. Maybe it's for a week, I don't know. I've never seen it in my life. You know how many times I brought this up while teaching? Lots of times. I know you guys are just as excited as I am to have seen that. That an hour is 60 minutes. Like, wow, that's a shock. For you guys, the shock's that it could be something else. For me, it's the shock that it's actually the 1 day or 2 days of the year that it's an hour. But isn't that classic of Judaism? Only Judaism would have an hour be another thing than 60 minutes. Like, everyone else just keeps it simple. Only the Jews have to have like a total calculation for what an hour is. Why, though? There's a reason why. Let me explain why, and you'll understand. The reason why is because everything's cyclical in Judaism. We've got deep things happening right now. Who cares if I say Shema at noon or at 7 or at, what was it, 9:29? Or at 9:29? Who cares if I say it at 9:30, 1 minute later? The answer is because as those times shoot by every day, there are little windows that are hitting, little windows that are time for Shema. Right there, it's the perfect time for Shema. Now it's going. It's 9:29, gone. And now when I say Shema at 9:30, I missed that by a minute. 9:30, windows closed. I'm still saying something good. It's not bad to say Shema. Shema is part of our Torah. But I'm not fulfilling the commandment. What's the commandment? Say Shema twice daily. Twice daily. Once in the night, once in the morning. Now who cares? It's day. Day is good enough, no? It's day. It's not like it's night. 9:30 in the morning is just as much day as 9:29, isn't it? And the answer is that when the Torah says, when thou risest up, what did it mean when thou risest up? And the answer is, people generally rise in the first 3 hours of the day. Most people rise a little in the midsection, and some rise very early and others rise. Now, of course, we live in different times. We have electricity. With electricity, you can rise. You can stay up all night and sleep all day. You have electricity. But throughout human history, people went to bed at dark. How much reading can you do at candlelight? You go to bed. You go to bed. So, okay, you fell asleep at sundown, or at dark, let's say. A couple stars are out. You ate a little something as the sky went dark. Maybe used some candles for a little while. You go to bed. And then comes dawn. You're up. Everyone was up at dawn. Dawn was like the normal time that people woke up, because there was no nightlife at that point. So people rose from dawn for 3 hours, when thou risest up. And it also says, and when thou liest down. When you go to sleep, you should say it. That's what it says in the Shema. And when thou layest down to rest. And when do people go to sleep? So it's much more liberal. Anytime between sundown, really 3 stars, until dawn, you can say Shema. It's a much bigger window. It's this giant window of anywhere from 3 stars all the way till the morning, till dawn. Dawn's hardly morning, it's still very dark. But the very first crack of dawn, that's when you first start seeing that kind of glow, then Shema's over at that point. You can't say Shema at that. You can say it, but you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of saying it at night. So that's the count of 3 hours. And that's just how it works. And why am I telling you all this? Oh, it's because we're discussing the cyclical nature of things, and there are windows of time. Prayer also, we mentioned prayer. Prayer was an hour later, it was about an hour later. And the prayer is also, it's got a window. Got to hit that window before the window closes. What they do is they divide the day into 12 units, and every unit has a different combination of God's name. God's name is spelled Yud. God has a lot of names that he uses, but one of them is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. So the first hour of the day is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, meaning from dawn, that hour. The next hour, the Yud moves over. Now it's Hey and Yud. It's Hey and Yud and Vav and Hey. Next hour, it just keeps moving. It intercalculates for 12 different ways. Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey has 12 possible combos. Yeah? There's probably more combos, but the main combos, maybe there are only 12 combos. I forget. But basically there's 12 combinations of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. I think there only are 12 possibilities, because it's 3 letters comes to 12 possible combinations. Every hour is a different combination of those letters. Now, what do you and I care about different combinations of each hour? Not much. But Kabbalists do care. And they want to be in tune with what's flowing. Notice 12 months of the year, every month has its own combination. Anyway, there's micro shifts in the cycle, and there's macro shifts in the cycle. So on the micro, there's things like the daily shifts in the times. Macros, the week. The week's also made of the 7 spheros that we discussed last week. Each day is a different one of the spheros. You have the 4 weeks of the month, which is each one's a letter of God's name based on the combo of that month. Then you have the bigger system, and that's what we're doing here, is the holidays are actually these pipes in time. So you could look at the Jewish calendar like a pinwheel that's spinning, and God's shining light, so to speak, through it, and that light, not even so to speak, God's shining light through the pinwheel, and the energies of the months are coming into effect, and then they're beaming down. So this particular Rosh Hashana, for example, is coming through the years. Every year it's hitting and beaming down at that part of the calendar. And that's a pipe in time. That's a pattern in time. It comes in, it goes out. And our job is to align with it. So every holiday has its laws. Passover has its laws. Rosh Hashana has its laws. Yom Kippur has its laws. Sukkot has its laws. Shavuos has some laws. All those laws are how to align with the pipe that's coming down, so that what comes down, the way it's meant to. The Jewish people are conduits. They align with these holidays, and the piping comes right through us. The negative things, meaning the thou shalt nots of a holiday, are how we step out of the way. It's how we get out of the way of what's coming down. Thou shall, like blow the shofar, then we're getting inside the pipe, and we're piping it into the world. What is the pipe? Well, it depends on the holiday. The pipe of Rosh Hashanah has to do with coronating God as King of the universe. That's the pipe for Rosh Hashanah. Coronating God as King of the universe. The pipe for Yom Kippur is forgiveness. We're going to pipe in forgiveness to the whole planet. You could have been the holiest guy all year. You could have been perfect. It doesn't mean you don't do Yom Kippur. You're going to do it for the planet. You're going to pipe down for the whole planet forgiveness into creation. We're going to then move into our thatch hut sukkahs. We're going to go party in the sukkah for a week straight. The whole nation is going to move outdoors into shantytown huts called sukkot and sukkahs. And what's that holiday? It's about joy. And we're going to pipe down joy for the whole year. Hanukkah, we're going to pipe down light. When is that? Winter solstice. In the winter solstice, we celebrate light. Isn't that interesting? To celebrate light in the darkest time of the year. And how do we do it? With a candle. You just light that candle, pushes away the darkness. And there's a lot of Kabbalistic stuff to know about Hanukkah. That's all about darkness and light and Greeks, and how the Greeks represented darkness, and the Jews represented light. And why exactly? And then there's Passover, freedom. Not freedom like Americans call freedom. That's called license. That's not freedom. That's just license. That's liberty. Liberty to do whatever you want. Yeah, that's Americanism. That's freedom. But that's not called freedom to us. For us, that's called slavery. Slavery, because I wind up being a slave to my whims. No, I feel like this. No, I feel like that. No, I feel like this. No, I feel like that. And I wind up just, after a while, I'm just a slave to all that stuff. I don't have any inner values to create the parameters of my freedom. So Americans think freedom is, to be able to go on any website you want, or go to Starbucks or something. They think that's freedom. Freedom is the ability to create a worldview that you live now, and you have the freedom to live by your worldview, or you have freedom to throw it out. And now you're in this constant battle between keeping the values or getting rid of the values. But to just have a society where freedom means just do whatever you want whenever you want to do it, so everyone winds up enslaved to their own personal whims at any time, and it creates in the end it creates narcissism and a great sleep and kind of social rot. Where were we at? Oh, so we're talking about the different holidays and what they pipe down. Shavuos pipes down Torah and wisdom into creation. And Tisha B'Av pipes down mourning because that's part of life also. There's a time to mourn, and it pipes in the morning for the tribulations of humanity and what's befallen us as a nation and as a globe. Okay, is that clear? So, so what we want to start focusing on, because we got 2 more days before we're all going to be in a 48-hour lockdown with shofars blasting, is to figure out what it is, Rosh Hashana is all about, and what am I really about? What am I really dedicated to? God needs me to make him king. Like, God, you need me to make you king? You're not king without me? Like, why does God need me to make him king? And anyway, king has a weird taste in my mouth. Kings are like despots. They're evil dictators. Like, I don't even relate to kings in any good way. Kings sound scary. Yeah, kings sound corrupt. So now we're supposed to make God king. And why does the king need me? But if you think about it, the king needs us. The king of the universe actually needs us. You know why? Because kings have subjects. Is there such a thing as a king without subjects? Why not? Imagine a guy like he was the king over Scotland. It's a good example today. He was the king over Scotland. Yeah. Now, he's direct family line. They were coronated king after king after king. It just so happens that Scotland isn't a monarchy anymore. It's run by a completely different government, and he has no subjects. So he shows up in our room, and he just walks into the door here in Jerusalem in royal vestments with the crown and everything, and we're like, whoa, who's this? And he says, well, I'm the king. I go, yeah, the king of what? He's like, well, I'm working on that. Oh, where are all your guards and all that? I'm working on that too. Oh, do you have any subjects? Not yet. Is he a king? What do you say? Is he a king? Not really. Not really. He's an unemployed king. I mean, he could show us the documents, how like kingship came down the family tree, but this guy's not a king. I imagine you're like, we all wind up going to a party afterwards, like there's some wedding reception. Everyone's invited, let's go. So we all go, and we got a king with us. People are like, who's your friend? We're just like, his name's Fred. His name's Fred. Yeah, what's with the outfit? Like, don't worry about it, man. Just hang out with him, okay? Hang out with him, I'll be right back. Leave him with Fred for a while. Yeah, you understand? It'd be like, what are we supposed to do with the guy? He thinks he's a king. A king is not a king without people. A king has to have subjects. So we are coronating God on Rosh Hashana by saying, we'll be your subjects. Really, Gentiles should celebrate Rosh Hashana. It's not unique to Judaism that we're the subjects of God. I mean, that's a very ethnocentric thought, to think the Jews are the subjects of God. We're like 0.02% of the world population. There's like 13 million of us. Japan's margin of error is like 80 million. Did I say Japan? China's margin of error is like 80 million. And we're the subjects of the king of the universe? So, to be real, we have to realize that Rosh Hashanah is really for the whole world. The whole world should be involved with Rosh Hashanah. Everyone in the world should be expressing, that God's the king. Okay, so let's take it from there. Okay, so God's not really a king without subjects. Okay, you're king, God. Mazel tov, you're the king. Yeah, everyone blows their yeah? Is that how the shofar blasts? Something like that. What movie was that, by the way? That was Star Wars. Yeah. So God, okay, you're the king. Here, we did it. Let's go home. Yeah? No, what's the issue? What's the problem? That even if we make God king, he's not king. You know why? Because a king is the kind of ruler that its subjects, the king's subjects, have made God king over their lives. Their taxes, so to speak, go to the king. Their actions are all based on like what the king likes, and they're certainly avoiding what the king doesn't like. There's a certain fear that goes over society. You don't want to cross the king, and you don't mess with the king. And you try to find out what is it the king loves and what does the king hate. Because I want to align myself with the king. So coronating God king isn't just blowing a shofar. Coronating God king means making God king over your life. I remember once a Jew was in the Discovery Seminar. He was a businessman, and he was a well-to-do businessman, and he did the Discovery Seminar. And he said at the end of the Discovery, I went up to him afterwards. I knew who he was. I went up to him and I said, "So, what do you think?" He says, "I think there's a God." I said, "What else do you think?" I said, "I think the Torah is binding." I said, "What are you going to do about it?" He says, "I want to keep one Shabbos." And so I said, "How are you going to do that? You don't know how to keep Shabbos." He says, "Can I keep it with you? You'll just keep an eye on me all Shabbos. I want, when I die," he's a businessman, he wasn't going to come to yeshiva. He says he wants, when he dies, that he gets upstairs, that he'll be able to say to God that he kept a whole Shabbos. So I said, "Okay." You stay with me. I was a student at the time at Aish. I got permission for him to stay in my dorm room. And I just kept a good eye on him all Shabbos. And made sure he didn't break Shabbos, brought him to Shabbos meals. He had a whole Shabbos. And then he wrote me a note. He said in the note, he says, "Listen, I have things I got to do in this world. So I really appreciate having had that Shabbos and everything, but I understand," because I gave him a big talking to how he should really stay in yeshiva. He should sell his business or train management so they can run the business, so he can learn how to keep the king's rules, learn how to live in the kingdom. But he wrote me a nice, beautiful letter saying, like, "I've got plans, I've got a life to live, I've got my own things going on, but thanks for the Shabbos that I had." And that was it. That was it. Life took other twists, though. God somehow, he must have really liked his Shabbos, because I think God just decided to make his business go bankrupt. And next thing you know, he was back. 3 years later, he was back. And he came to yeshiva. He studied, and he actually became a Breslover chassid, this guy. Yeah. He's a Breslover chassid. Then he became a rabbi, and then he was a campus rabbi for 15 years in America, in North America, in Canada, and then he became the vice president of Chase Bank. Straight from campus rabbi to vice president of Chase Bank, driving around a Lexus. Yeah? Hybrid Lexus. This guy's got some life. Crazy life, right? And
it only goes in one direction.
Yeah.
From Gashmias to Roughneck, but not back to Gashmias.
Yeah, he's right back to Gashmias. And when and you get it's in Beverly Hills, so when these Persians come in to like invest their money and stuff, they're like, "You seem Jewish, let us introduce you to the vice president." And they introduce him to the vice president. There he is in a kippah. His pants don't look like mine, but you can see there's a little more hair on the sides. And he's making people a lot of money over there, and he teaches in this super 5-star hotel right across the street. During his lunch break, he teaches Breslov books in the gardens of one of the fanciest hotels in the world called the Montage, and so you can actually go to a Breslov class in the gardens of the Montage right across from Chase, Beverly Hills. There's just no rules in LA. You can just do whatever you want over there. When my kids land in LA, when we go down the escalator from to the pickup, when we're going down, it says "Welcome to LA." So my kids, whenever we're going down that escalator, they say, "Welcome to LA, where nothing matters." When we come back from LA, we get a call usually from their teachers 3 months later, saying, "Your child is still not back." And we're like, "What do you mean? We came back 3 months ago." And they're like, "Physically, Spiritually, something's gone terribly wrong. And we're like, what could have possibly gone wrong? we didn't even do anything. Just hanging around Bubby and Zadie's house, you know. And they're like, your kid's not back. You know. Yeah. I once had, we were there in California, and I broke my scapula on a ski jump. I landed on a rail slide, like a trick rail slide, where snowboarders go. I didn't know about rail slides. I came flying off a jump, landed on a railing. Anyway, I broke my scapula. So they put me on morphine, because there's nothing you can do for a scapula. So they put me on morphine and just laid me in a bed while my whole family skied. And so I'm laying in this bed. I couldn't even hold a book. So what did I do? I turned on the television. I watched news. Just watched news, because I don't want to watch all the garbage and American stuff. And just watch the news. So at the end of those 3 days, I was able to move around a little bit more, so that was enough of the news. And then I got to go back to my life a bit. You know, I didn't get to move for another 2 weeks. I was still like broken scapula. But anyway, when I got back to Israel, for the next 9 months, people were asking me, what's happened to you spiritually? What has gone wrong with you? For 9 months. For 9 months, not a week went by where I didn't run into someone. He was talking to me, and he's like, there's something wrong with you. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, I don't know, you've like lost your spiritual edge or something, you know. Something's dull in you, like something's disappeared. And I worked hard on it, and also I didn't feel my prayers very much. I couldn't connect in prayer. And then after about 9 months, no one said another word, and I felt also much more back in my game. Yeah, so we have no idea how we're being affected all the time spiritually by just kind of letting stuff come in, you know. The way we look at our minds, I've realized over the years, is real estate. Your mind's real estate, and everyone's fighting for it. Your mind is real estate, and everyone's fighting for it. And in America, they say like it's un-American not to give over all the real estate to anything that happens to be in front of you at the time. It's un-American. You know, it's freedom. You know, right? Back to freedom. You know, like let it all in. You know? No. This is your real estate. Your mind is your real estate. And you've got to be, if you own real estate, you're careful of your real estate. You know, you be very careful what you let into your real estate. And the eyes are the windows to the real estate of your mind. Your ears are the portals of the real estate of your mind. And you want to be as careful as possible to make sure that the real estate stays sanctified. And that we all have to take little what do you call those things? Sorties. You know, airplanes, like, don't they do sorties? Like they got to go in. We all have to take little sorties into the business world. You got to make money, so you got to take your little sortie into the business world. But you got to make money. You got to learn a profession. You may have to spend plenty of time in a non-holy environment, depending on how you make a living and what you need to train in. You go to med school, you're going to have many years of training in non-holy environments. But you take your sortie and you come right back to your holy real estate of your mind. My rabbi said it very beautifully. He said, he was talking about how people take their work home with them and they worry about it and everything like that. He says that God created the Jewish brain for Torah, for God, for connecting to God in Torah. He says, okay, you got to make a living, so God allows you to partition some of your mind to make money. But he did not allow you to worry about it. And when you finish work, you finish work. You leave it. And you move back to what God created your mind for. Because in the end, your mind's God's mind. Only God's stuck with whatever you look at or read or hear or whatever. And so he gives you permission to make a living, but not to worry about it. But let's conclude this. Well, let's conclude this whole thing. The main thing is coronating God isn't just blowing a shofar. It's making God the king over your life, over your actions, over your eyes, over your ears, over your food intake, over your sexuality. It's over, God is God over all of your world. That's coronating God. And that's probably why the Jews are the ones who celebrate Rosh Hashana, because no one else really wants to make God the king over their lives. I mean, yeah, God, whenever you ask someone about God, they're like, oh, I believe there's something up there. That's very different. Jews don't say, I believe there's something up there. At least Jews who know Torah don't say, I believe there's something up there. For us, it's the king of the universe. We are his subjects. And our job is to make God king over all aspects of life. When I speak to my wife and she upsets me, so I can't just be upset. I need to first make God king and say, okay, God, what are you showing me in your world? So she's exposing a soft spot. Some part of me that's getting exposed right now, and it hurts. I want to yell at her, say something not nice to your messenger. I want to be not nice to my wife, meaning I want to be not nice to the messenger right now, your messenger. But I want to make you king, God, and say, she's saying something to me, it's hurting me. It's hitting a soft spot. So what's going on in me here that she's tuning into that I have to somehow work through? Because you're the king. And the same thing, kids, everything. God sends everything our way. And when I make God king, I'm not reactive. I am proactive. Shalom, everyone. Shalom.